let your breath relax your mind. Take these few moments as training for your mind. This is the most personal time you're going to spend with yourself. So appreciate these few moments. All you have to do is observe your breath and then let the breath work its magic on your mind and your body. Now interlock your hands and stretch your arms up above your head. Extend your shoulders. Inhale when you do that. It will help you lengthen your spine further. When maintaining the length of your spine, gently bring your hands in front of your chest in Namaskara Sthiti. Now we'll begin this session by chanting the Gayatri Mantra. Slowly take a deep inhalation. Let's sing it together. Om Bhur Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. Having absorbed the effect and the vibration of the Gayatri Mantra, let's generate some energy between our hands by rubbing our palms against each other. Finally, once you feel this energy, cover your eyes, absorb this energy through your eyes firsthand. Inhale when you do that, keep your eyes closed, massage your face, head, neck, shoulders, back, front, whatever you want to transfer this energy into. Finally, before you open your eyes, fold your palms last time, bow down to the universal truth, and with a few blinks, open your eyes again. Namaste, good morning. Thank you for being here. What did we study yesterday? Studied the spine. Any questions about the spine? No questions about the spine? What do we study today?
The knee. You said knee or right?
Let's study the girdles today. We'll cover both the girdles, the pectoral as well as the pelvic girdle in one day. So guys, what are the two parts of a skeletal system? The human skeletal system can be broken down into two categories, two portions. What are the two parts of the skeletal system? Axial skeletal system and appendicular skeletal system. The axial skeletal system is the same part of the skeletal system which runs along the midline of the human body. Midline being the imaginary line which dissects the body in equal portions left and right. So this axial skeletal system is running through the midline, which means that it's the center of the body. The head, the spine, and everything else which is in the center of the body falls under the axial skeletal system. That means everything else falls in the appendicular skeletal system. The shoulders, the hips, the legs, everything, the fingers, the elbows, forearms, everything is a part of the appendicular skeletal system. But there is another category, so to say, but it still falls in the appendicular skeletal system, which is the connection between the appendicular skeletal system and the axial skeletal system. This connection, this bridge, so to say, the connection which joins the arms to the entire torso to the body or the legs to the torso, those portions are called as girdles. Girdles are basically the connection between the appendicular as well as the axial skeletal system. There are two girdles inside or in the human body as such. The first girdle is called as the pectoral girdle, which is nothing but the entire shoulder joint that we know. The other girdle, which is in the lower part of the human body, is called as the pelvic girdle, which is nothing but the hip joint of the human body. There are a lot of details about these girdles individually. It's not that complicated to understand, but what's more important when it comes to understanding the movement, the functionality or the anatomy of these girdles is that we need to understand to what extent are you able to work with these joints. Specifically, if we talk about the shoulder joint, let's start with the pectoral girdle first. What kind of movements do you think are possible when it comes to the shoulder joint? Depression, elevation, and protraction, retraction. Yes, and
I would say all movement, extension, flexion, rotation, and circumference,
everything. Ball and socket joint, remember? They're capable of doing all the movements, whatever is necessary. The same thing is possible in case of the pelvic girdle as well. Same joint, ball and socket joint, protraction, retraction, extension, flexion, adduction, abduction, rotation, circumduction as well. But do you think you're actually able to rotate the hip joint? Yeah? No. Yes? Yes? Can you? Put your leg out. Just try doing this. Where do you think this rotation is happening from? Is it happening from the knee? Is it happening from the knee? Or is it happening over here? Yeah, it's happening over here. To further confirm this, try putting this leg behind your head. You can do that. I'm sure you can do it. You can do it, I'm sure. Yeah. This is nothing but the rotation of the hip joint as a ball and socket joint. Now, even though the pectoral girdle is also to some extent able to do the same things, but because of the limitations, that is more or less the difference between the pectoral and the pelvic girdle is what we are going to understand today. So let's start with the pectoral girdle. What, if you have seen the skeletal system, then tell me what bones do you think form the entire shoulder joint as such? Simple as that. First thing, we all know the shoulder joint is incomplete without the arm. So I'll mention the obvious one. The humerus. What else forms the pectoral girdle? No. This is not a shoulder joint, no. That too, if we talk about the humerus, then the proximal end of the humerus. Only the upper arm, the upper portion of the upper humerus form. What else forms the shoulder joint? This, guys, try putting your hands around here. Just try feeling your yeah, if you're trying to bones are moving. If you put your hands on your ribs while trying to do any shoulder movements, is the rib cage anyway moving? It's not right. Scapula. It's moving? Yeah? Yes. Yes. Put your hand here. This is the clavicle bone, right? Put your hand here and lift your shoulder up and down. Tell me, is this moving as well? It's moving. So these are the three bones which form the entire shoulder joint as such. Humerus being the upper arm, scapula being the shoulder blade as we know it commonly, and last one, clavicle being the collarbone that we know. Now what we need to understand is that the clavicle bone is the only long bone present in the body which is located as a horizontal bone in the human body. All the other long bones are vertical in nature. Just think about the entire skeletal system. Look here. Anyhow, all the long bones in the body, all of them, they are vertical in nature, each and every one of them, except for this clavicle bone. The clavicle bone is the only bone which is located on a horizontal plane. Apart from that, every bone is, vertical in nature. The clavicle bone is actually, not really doing much when it comes to the entire shoulder joint, because when it comes to the movement in the anatomy of the shoulder joint, that's mostly happening in the shoulder area. But this clavicle bone is actually the bridge between the axial and the skeletal system. And that is why anytime you're doing any movements with this shoulder joint, with this arm, it just gets included as a part because it's connecting the entire shoulder joint with the spine. Of course, there are so many other muscles attached to the entire structure which also make the movement happen, but this is the only connection between the upper body and the arms as such. There are a certain things that you would need to understand and remember when it comes to the entire shoulder joint. One of the most important bones, one of the most vital bones when it comes to the anatomy of the shoulder joint is the scapular bone. This shoulder blade is not just there present in the backside, but it has attachments happening in the front end of the human body as well. If you pay attention over here, then this whole thing, the entire humerus, the proximal end of the humerus bone is fitting perfectly in the scapular bone. If this is the clavicle bone, then this whole scapular bone is having a lot of, ridges, so to say, outpouchings, things that are pushing out as an anatomical structure itself. If you just look at it, it looks like a flat bone, which it is triangular in shape, more like a blade, but that has very less to do with the entire shoulder joint as such. There are two protrudements coming out of the entire, scapular bone. This thing you can see right here, and this one where the clavicle bone is attaching. So this thing is actually a part of the entire scapular bone. And these are the special places where all the muscles, the ligaments, and all of these bones, they are more or less attached with the help of various ligaments inside of the entire pectoral girdle. The upper one is called as the acromion process. You can write it down if you want to. The lower one is called as the coracoid process. Do you want me to write down these names? Acromion process and coracoid process. In principle, these processes, they are protruding from the back side of the human body and almost coming towards the front, forming an attachment or a connection between the back and the front side of the body as well. As you can see right here as well, the scapular bone, this clavicle bone does not have a connection with the coracoid process. It only has a connection with the acromion process, which tells you that the lower part or the coracoid process has less to do with the scapular bone as compared to the entire upper arm. The coracoid process, on the other hand, plays a very big role when it comes to stabilizing or creating as a connection of all the ligaments which stabilize the humerus bone or the upper arm bone to the scapular bone.
It is under.
It is, yeah, it is the lower one right here, as you can see. This one is the acromion process. This one is the coracoid process. So the coracoid process also creates a very shallow cavity inside the inside or the lateral end of the scapular bone, which is called as the glenoid process or the glenoid fossa. You can see right here, this whole thing is more or less a shallow cavity. Now, this is common in case of the hip joint as well. But as you can see, it's much deeper as compared to the shoulder joint when it comes to the hip joint. The reason being, you can understand that the shoulder joint is not really, supposed to handle a lot of weight. But the hip joint is meant to handle a lot of weight, which it does when we are standing, when we are walking, whatever we are doing throughout our lives. The hip joint is handling much more weight, and that is an evolutionary thing as well. So this glenoid fossa, when it attaches to the face or the head of the humerus, which is also called as the humeral head, it becomes the glenohumeral joint. What? Glenohumeral joint, coming from these two different names. So to understand these names, you just need to remember the names of these bones. All the understanding of the various ligaments which attach different bones, the various tendons, the various muscles, all of them, they somehow more or less form the entire anatomy and the names of all the special bones and ligaments. So this particular ligament, this particular joint is called as the glenohumeral joint, coming from the humerus bone and the glenoid process of the scapular bone. Make sense? Another joint which attaches to, which is a part of the pectoral girdle, is called as the sternoclavicular joint. Now, if I say sternoclavicular joint, what comes to your mind? Just by hearing this name, if you're aware of the names of the different bones, you can make out where this joint is happening. Doesn't know anything about anatomy. Sternoclavicular. 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 No, I know.
Attaches the chest to the collarbone.
The sternum being this bone of the entire rib cage. This is a separate bone. This is not an entire bone. So these are called rib bones. The rib cage as such. This particular bone is called as the sternum. If this is the clavicle bone, then the medial end of the clavicle bone is attached to the sternum, which is also becomes the sternoclavicular joint. As simple as that. And V-shape? Center bone, Baba. Sterno.
There is like V-shape. Yes, you can say almost no. You can say it's like V-shape.
As in this thing.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know if it's important as such. But it's there. It's there. Anytime you're trying to lift the body, it helps in pulling the pectoral muscles. This becomes the attachment. The collarbone also serves as the attachment for the entire joint. But at the same time, don't take it lightly. The clavicle bone, even though it works as a bridge, it has very less to do with the movements. But at the same time, if you have a dislocated clavicle bone or a collarbone or a damaged clavicle bone, it can completely ruin your shoulder entirely, very easily. I had a dislocated clavicle bone, collarbone right here.
From
No, not from a.
How to dislocate collarbone?
It happened to me. So you can see right here, you can see it's moving quite a lot outside. It's normal over here,
Yes.
but here it's outside. When it actually happened 14 years ago, this thing was almost this much outside. Eventually, I never went to a doctor.
Again.
But
Never.
that's why it's sticking out like that.
Yeah, I never even got an X-ray done for it. Not really tapas. 14 years ago, I was very far away from yoga. I was not really.
Okay.
I was just a teenager back then.
Doctors, it is not there in your family.
It is there, but my dad is a very strict person, is a very strict human being. So if I had told him that, I returned home with a dislocated collarbone, first he's going to kick my ass and then he's going to take me to the doctor. So there are like, I cannot tell this thing.
How it happened?
I met with a bike accident. I was driving a bike and, somehow it just got dislocated. And for 2 weeks, I didn't go to college after that.
You could have suffered those days.
I did.
suffering.
Yeah, but you know, entirely for 2 years, lifting the arm up was not happening at all for me, just because of the external attachment that the clavicle bone does. And you know, even though I could have lifted the arm easily, but then again, this whole area has a lot of attachments to the entire thing. There are muscles, you share this area with the deltoids. The deltoid muscle are attached from this particular area. So the ligaments which are attached, if they are broken, even the slightest of movements, they can result in a lot of pain. So even the slightest of twists, bends, or you know, torture, whatever you bear, is going to easily affect the movement or the function of the human body. So first joint inside the human body, inside the pectoral girdle. I just told you that. Glenohumeral joint. Glenohumeral joint. Gleno coming from the glenoid process, which is this cavity inside the scapular bone. Glenoid process, you can write down the name of this thing. You want me to write it down? Just so. It's a very English name. Glenoid process.
So it's a glenohumeral.
Glenohumeral, yes.
This is what we showed inside.
This is the cavity, the socket end of the ball and socket joint.
What is the socket ball is attached?
Yeah, this area, this is the glenoid fossa, the glenoid cavity. The ball end of this joint is attaching right here, idly, as you can see right here. And this whole thing becomes the ball and socket joint eventually.
This is the acromion process.
The acromion process is here. This thing, you feel it right here. This is the acromion. This is the, no. This is, what do you call this? The scapula, the blade portion. The coracoid process over here. You can feel it here as well. It becomes the attachment. Yeah. This,
Under the acromion.
it's under the above one, the one on the posterior superior aspect of this thing is the acromion process right here. This one is the coracoid process. And there is this whole acromion process is obviously coming out from the backside. So you can somewhere feel it as well. So the acromion process is moving outwards somewhere over here. Yeah? Makes sense? On the inside, which you cannot feel in the armpit, is the glenoid process. To serve as the socket portion of the ball and socket joint, that is the shoulder bone.